Welcome to episode 159 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Breitman, coming to you on Tuesday, September 5th. Reality bites the day after Labor Day weekend being over. Everyone's back to work for the most part, and school, all of that. The fall is here, which I love the fall, but this day is always hard just in terms of a reality check with things getting back to the grind. But the good news is we have a win to celebrate. From Sunday, Rutgers defeating Northwestern 24-7. I had a rapid reaction minutes after the game. That was our latest episode, and today wanted to on a few things that I think the personality and mentality of what we hope this team can become this season that will ultimately lead to a successful season and hopefully 6+ win season. Things that happened that were positive on Sunday, things that they need to improve on, and things that are still developing in terms of what this team is going to be. So first and foremost, I think limiting mistakes, huge plus on Sunday in their win over Northwestern. 0 turnovers from the offense. There was that special teams fumble, which we'll talk about in a bit. But Gavin Wimsatt played clean football. He played mistake-free football. He showed maturity in throwing certain passes away, which should be noted in his accuracy. You know, he's only at 58%, but there were several throws that he intentionally threw away when there was nothing there, and that's a huge step forward for him. He ran with authority. I really liked the way he ran. He amassed 33 yards on 9 carries, but a couple really good runs, including that touchdown run. And also just in terms of his decision making, he was decisive. He was confident. He was poised. All of that led to a mistake-free, turnover-free game for Rutgers. He had a couple bad throws, but he also bounced back from them. So that was really encouraging. You had, Deshaun Benjamin making his collegiate debut as a true freshman. I thought he represented fairly well. He didn't have any, fumbles or anything like that. Could have been, the moment could have been too big for him. And then even more so is the fact that they had 2 penalties in the entire game, only had 1 for 5 yards leading into that last minute. They had a 15-yard call. I forget exactly what it was on the defense that was part of the scoring drive from Northwestern that ruined the shutout. Again, that was part of the fumble on the punt return, so it set the defense up. But on a close to 90-degree day, when so many players were rotated in, that offensive line rotated 9-10 guys, no holding calls, no false starts. Tremendous job by them in that respect. Defense, defensive line rotated quite a bit as well. You had unproven receiving core for the most part. You had, like I said, the running back freshman Benjamin. You had a lot of moving parts. First game of the season, and Rutgers played clean football. That was really, really, really encouraging. They averaged 8 penalties a game last season. So for them to only have 2, including that one very late in the game with the issue no longer in doubt, super encouraging performance. Can they string together another solid performance on Saturday against Temple in regard to turnovers and penalties? That's really the key. Can they build on this? Can this become a personality trait of this football team where they limit mistakes? Because if they can do that, that really raises the floor on the ceiling. I think that they will be competitive in more games than not. We know they have the Blue Bloods. We know that 3 top 10 Big Ten teams right now in Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. At Wisconsin is going to be a tall task. But even going to Wisconsin, if you can play mistake-free football, you give yourself a chance to win. So other than those 3 Blue Bloods, even though Rutgers has 5 ranked opponents on the schedule as of now, at Wisconsin, at Iowa, if you play mistake-free football and come up with some big plays, you're in that game. So that is really key for them to be able to continue this, and we'll see what happens on Saturday. Next one is the disruptiveness of the defense. They passed with flying colors as well against Northwestern. They forced 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions. They had 5 sacks. Both of those areas Rutgers was not strong in last season, did not generate a ton of pressure on the quarterback, did not generate a ton of sacks, did not generate turnovers. So to see both of those come through, to see the defensive line have multiple contributors, to have a real rotation working, it was great to see. That was super encouraging as well. Pretty much stuck with the 2 starting linebackers the entire game, Deion Jennings, Tyrone Powell. They led Rutgers in tackles. They're really, really, really strong in pass coverage. They're, they're looking solid. And then the secondary, I mean, you have Max Melton and Robert Longerbeam are your guys, right? Those are your top two corners. Those are two of the, I think, can be the better corners in the league. Max Melton for sure. Yeah, I thought the safeties represented fairly well. Igbenusin, is going to hopefully take a step forward. Flip Dixon, Shaquan Loyal had a few big plays. Had that safety blitz that led to a sack in a key spot on a third down. He had another big hit as well. So he played really well. Very encouraging performance in the defense, but it really just spoke to the disruptiveness that they were able to bring. Obviously, the Northwestern offensive line struggled, but they flustered a established quarterback in Ben Bryant. He was flustered. He was rattled a few times. He had a pretty bad game. I was very concerned about his ability to have time. He's one of the more efficient passers in college football when he has time to throw the football. He did not have much time on Sunday. And again, in that kind of weather, in your first game, Rutgers was able to rotate. Obviously, the offense, keeping the defense off the field in the first half was huge to them dominating the second half on the defensive side. So complimentary football in full force for Greg Schiano's team. That's what he wants, and that's what we saw on Sunday, and that was super encouraging. Now, for that to continue, can this Rutgers offense sustain drives on a regular basis? And I think in part how they do that is employ the aggressive mentality that we saw in those first two drives of the game. Kirk Shiraka, tremendous game plan. They always schedule out the first 15, script the first 15 to 20 plays of the game, and Rutgers executed. And they were more aggressive than I think most people expected. They went for fourth downs on the first two drives. The seventh play of the game, just like 3.5 minutes into the game at midfield at their own 48, they went for it. Kyle Monangai converted on a 4th and 1. You had Gavin Wimsatt, what I think was the key for him in the game, 4th and 5, scrambled left, completed to Christian Dremel for 17 yards and converted that fourth down that ultimately resulted in his touchdown pass to Ian Strong, SportsCenter #1 play of the day. Tremendous growth for Wimsatt in that moment to make something out of nothing, to convert the fourth down, for the staff to show confidence in him. I think it just kind of buoyed his entire performance. And for him to make that kind of throw, obviously it's promising and encouraging for the rest of the season and for his development and his career. But I think it really spurred things for that game and was a huge key. And it was just awesome to see them make that call, not only to go for it on fourth down, but to trust Wimsatt. And I wrote about this last night. It's on Scarlet Faith right now. But I think Schiano's trust in Shiraka and Schiano and Shiraka's trust in Wimsatt, it's a huge key here in terms of the offense and Wimsatt taking a needed next step or two this season. So can they do it on a regular basis? Obviously, the second half, they didn't really have a lot of sustained drives. They had the ball. It was 2 minutes in the first half, 16 in the second half, still 38 for the game. Is super impressive. And they had a big lead and they got a little conservative, mostly runs. I understand it. They also, I think a big part of this, and Schiano touched on this after the game, they did not show everything in the playbook. They didn't want to have to, and they didn't need to. So it makes sense. I think they're saving stuff, hopefully, for Virginia Tech. Temple, you're hoping that, they can have a similar type performance and establish control from the outset and dominate and kind of have your base offense and make plays when you can, but not, unroll the entire playbook for all to see, because that Virginia Tech game is so massive. It's the swing game of the season, I think. So we'll see what happens there. But I think the key is in being able to sustain drives, in being able to move the ball, having 2 16-play drives, 75 and 80 yards. They only did that, 2 16-play drives all of last season. They do it in the first 2 drives of the season. But I really think the keys were that aggressive mentality, going for it on fourth down, letting Wimsatt throw. They didn't throw a ton in terms of down the field, 15 plus yards, but he was much more accurate inside 10 yards. And, they were missing Sam Brown and Aaron Young. So and we'll get to that more in a moment, but just in terms of the pass game, they did not sit back and just they did run it up the middle a lot, but they established control of the game with Gavin Wimsatt throwing the football, and that was super encouraging. Schiano touched on it. He was asked about it after the game, and he said every game's different, every game plan's different, and of course that's true. But I think that as the opponents get tougher, if Rutgers has any chance of winning these 50-50 games and or giving a blue blood a true scare, they're going to have to be able to throw the ball. They're going to have to be aggressive. They're going to have to take chances. So to see them do that in the opener was super encouraging. Let's hope it continues. Fourth kind of personality trait, mentality that we're hoping for, that this one in particular needs to improve, is running the ball more efficiently. They only average 2.8 yards per carry. Now, there is a caveat to that, in that a lot of the key runs they had, third and short, fourth and short, they came through. So you have to applaud them for that. The offensive line, had some highs and lows. Overall, I think their pass protection was pretty good. I think their run blocking and their ability to create holes was not great. The other thing that I just touched on was Sam Brown and Aaron Young being out. Also, Al-Shadi Salam was out. Shiano talked about that. I have an article up on the site, with his quotes on their absences. So that was certainly part of it. And those are guys that, I thought Monungai had a pretty solid game in that third quarter drive where he had that, avoided the tackle and had the 20-yard pass play off the dump off, and then that 15-yard touchdown run. He, obviously showed up, and he's a valuable back for Rutgers. I also thought there was Monungai picked up the blitz at one point. I forget when it was in the game, but that was a highlight reel block where he pancaked the linebacker for Northwestern. And then also on his touchdown run, Sean Bowman, who did not play a ton and did not have an impact in the passing game, made a tremendous block to spring Monungai, who did have to beat a defender off the line in that touchdown run as well. So there were certainly some encouraging things, but the offensive line, certainly that step needs to take full effect in terms of run production, being more efficient. If Rutgers is going to sustain drives, they have to produce in the run game on a consistent basis as the competition gets stronger, because if they can't run the ball, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the pass game, and they need balance. They need balance in the offense, and they need to be aggressive, but they need to be, they can't put Wimsatt in third and long situations, especially against better defenses. So that's certainly something, in terms of the running back depth, when Brown and Young and Shadi Salam get back, that will obviously be key to all of this. Monungai staying healthy, Deshaun Benjamin. They have 5 legitimate backs that can all help in different ways. But when will Rutgers have a full complement of them all? And how will Shiraka utilize them when he has them all available? That will be fascinating to watch. But it is exciting to see the fact that they have 5 legitimate backs that can all help, establishing rhythm and I think cohesiveness on the offensive line. They rotated 9-10 guys. It was a very hot day. Are they going to be able to settle on 5 starting offensive linemen? We've talked about that a lot in the preseason. It was a matter, I guess, of getting experience and keeping guys fresh in game 1. But what does it look like in game 4 in the big house? Who do you have on that offensive line? Who's in the backfield? And can Rutgers run against Michigan to keep themselves in the game? Obviously, against Virginia Tech is going to be huge as well, being a swing game. And then the last part, I did write about special teams. I thought, there were some high points for sure. Obviously some low points as well, but can special teams be a plus for this team? This is another one that's kind of unknown after Sunday. I thought the specialists, for the most part, I thought, Flynn Appleby was very, very good. 4 out of his 5 punts inside the 20. He did what he had to do, 40-yard average. He's just got to limit mistakes as well. He's just got to be steady. And then also, underrated, Jude McAtamey, who lost his place kicking job, was tremendous. 5 touchbacks on 5 kickoffs for Rutgers in terms of his role. He did a really, really, really good job. And if he can do that consistently, he's going to be valuable. And then, Jay Patel, he did miss a field goal. He hit the upright right side, just missed inside. That was disappointing. But again, what I liked about him, which I didn't touch on Sunday, was he did look the part. He had presence. He looked like he had confidence. He's got a solid leg. It's not a cause for concern, but he does need to be consistent from 30 to 40 yards. He's 1 of 2 on Sunday. Hopefully he can build on that against Temple and get some more confidence, because he's going to be a key part of all this too. And if all 3 specialists can be consistent and be steady, and be in the plus side, right, in terms of positive contributions, that's going to go a long way for Rutgers this year. Obviously, returning a bit of an issue. Rashad Rochelle had the fumble. They had another muff. Aaron Young is the guy I think that could return kicks and punts who was unavailable. Obviously, they might have to find somebody else. Hopefully, Rochelle could bounce back, of course. The coverage was fine, in part because of McAtammy, all those touchbacks. And the punts were all downed as well, I think. So the coverage units didn't have a lot of work to do. We'll see what happens when they play a better team. That's kind of a what if or a question mark at this point. But these are all things that are going to, I think are personality traits, mentality traits, just big picture items that are going to shape this season for Rutgers football. I'm excited for how they performed in week 1. Week 2, Temple, they have to build on those things, establish rhythm, establish consistency, and then you have a real big moment against Virginia Tech. Temple, you can't take lightly. You almost lost to them last year, 16-14 at Temple. Shaquan Loyal had that pick 6 that saved them. But let's see if they can come in and play consistent, establish control early on, and just dominate the same way they did against Northwestern. That would obviously be a big positive. And if they do that, all the 5 things I mentioned, I think all take a step forward. Thanks for listening and watching to this podcast, and I'll be back tomorrow.